Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath, the podcast that explores the movies that influenced how we view love and romantic relationships. Yes, there will be spoilers. I'm your host, Diana Rojek Skonnord. You're like the man version of icy hot. Are you cold? Are you warm? Is this tingling sensation nice, or is it deeply uncomfortable? We're talking about the hating game from 2021, and I have brought in my Smurfette to my grumpy Smurf. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Diana.
Hi. I briefly considered making you Grumpy Smurf, but I'm Grumpy Smurf.
Fair enough. You've also called me icy hot and deeply uncomfortable at various times, so.
Yeah, you're very, like, the fact that you radiate warmth, really helpful in the winter.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
And not so much in the summer.
It's, no.
Ours is a seasonal romance.
Oh, God, like May, December?
Not sure that's what that means, but.
No, I know that's not what it means. I just want to make sure we're clarifying that.
Okay.
So now that we've started our own hating game, I should point out.
It's not a game.
It's not a game, it's a lifestyle.
Well, I'm glad you were having fun.
I never said I was having fun.
Oh, yeah.
I don't recall saying good luck.
I don't recall you enjoying games.
Oh, mean, too real.
Sorry.
Alrighty. So, the hating game came out last month, literally, December 10th to be exact, and I picked it. It's
we watched it premiere night, premiere weekend.
Yeah. It came out in the theaters, but it was also on demand simultaneously. So, a little bit of context for this. I don't know if I would say that I have been looking forward to this movie, but I will say that I have been watching the progress of this movie because I read The Hating Game, not when it came out, but a little bit of backstory there. When the first time I ever went to the Rip Bodice bookstore, the romance-only bookstore, which is actually not true. They have mainly romance novels, but they also have biographies and stuff. What's popular and recent.
It's a specialty bookstore in Los Angeles.
Yes, specialty bookstore. And I'm just like, why is Michelle Obama's biography here? Answer, they sell books, but a vast majority of what they have are romance novels. And so I picked it up, I read it, and I don't know to what extent you know my whole story. If you've listened to every episode, first of all, thank you. Second of all, it's like I had a reluctant, desire to actually share the fact that I really enjoy love stories, but it turns out I don't like all love stories. I just like love origin stories mainly. And so I'm still kind of hiding my reading of things, and I was just starting to get into these, and this is the first one, mainstream one, I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, and your inclination to hide it was both because of the sort of general perception around romance novels, and also your own kind of sense of vulnerability about it.
It's society, man.
Of course.
But also, shut up, you don't know my business.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm only your husband.
The universal you don't need to know my business, which is exactly why I have a podcast.
Yeah, and now you all do.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, thank you for trusting me with the discretion of how much of your business I share with our listeners.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm so confused right now, so all I heard thanks, and so I respond back with thanks. Okay, so I probably still have the receipts somewhere, but I bought the book. I very much enjoyed the book. Actually, it took me a really long time to read it because I wasn't exactly a reader then. You were actually trying to get me to start reading more. That's when you gave me Ready Player One.
I wasn't trying to get you to read more. I think I was.
You were trying to get me to read not nonfiction.
I was trying to get you to relax more. I think it's more like it.
Well, okay. You were trying to get me to read for pleasure, not for...
Right, because at the time you were very wrapped up in a book club that had a lot of deep social issues type reading, which is great. It's just when that's your entire reading itinerary for the year, it can be a bit much.
It was the only thing I was reading. That is correct.
Yeah, because you were trying as hard as you could just to keep up with it. And
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so now I have two. I have deep issue nonfiction, and I have Happily Ever After. Guaranteed.
Yeah, it's a good balance.
I recently read something where it turns out it wasn't a romance, and then the ending happened, and I'm like, that's good for real life. This sucks.
Right. I think you cited a blog post, was it, about the definition of the romance genre, and it includes guaranteed happily ever after, as you just alluded to.
Or happily ever for now. I'm learning
Right.
all kinds of things.
Dinah will drop a link into the show notes.
Damn it. Ugh,
Sorry.
now I have to drop a link into the show notes.
I gave her homework.
I don't know what that blog post is, but I'll just like Google romance novels and you'll find the definition of it somewhere. But if I can get back to the hating game.
Sure.
Okay, so it's based on a novel by Sally Thorne, and the generic plot of the movie specifically from IMDb is resolving to achieve professional success without compromising her ethics. Lucy embarks on a ruthless game of one-upmanship against cold and efficient nemesis Joshua, a rivalry that is complicated by her growing attraction to him. And it stars Lucy Hale and Austin Stowell as, Lucy and Joshua accordingly, and then there's some other characters. Danny, Helen, Bexley. A lot of them are just kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, Corbin Bernsen is bouncing around there somewhere.
He's Bexley.
Yeah.
So I was just reading off the characters. I mean, again, I tend to go on for a while, but I actually went kind of down a mini rabbit hole. I'm just like, where have I seen these people? I mean, besides Corbin Bernsen, where have I seen these people before? The answer is not anywhere, which is kind of interesting. But I do, before I forget, I want to give, I really want to commend some of the other people involved in this movie, specifically the screenwriter, who is, come on, scroll faster, Christina Mengert, who wrote the screenplay, because there's a lot in the book that appears in the movie that you cannot get into the detail about it. And so there were little flourishes here and there. It probably could have also been the production design or the props master or anything like that. But a lot of it there was like not winking to it, but just paying homage to it.
Yeah, as is often the case when you're seeing a movie adaptation of a book that you're very familiar with, then you're always going to kind of be on the edge of your seat to see what they carry through and the things they can kind of make reference to without fully calling attention to, or
the things that they drop entirely, where it's just like, that was kind of necessary for the growth of it, and then you just cram it in there one last minute.
Right. It's like that kind of bad compromise between well, we want to reference it, but we can't really call attention to it. So it's like, just, throw it in, but don't actually give any significance to it. And then it's just like the worst of both worlds.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I could probably think of 100 different examples of just like, oh, this whole thing, that was their growth, but you just made it into like a toy or something like that they play with for 5 seconds. That makes no sense.
Yeah. As kind of a, general movie enthusiastic geek, there's probably all sorts of, examples we could both come up with. I mean, just talking about all the choices they made off the top of my head, with the adaptation of Watchmen to the movie alone. That was
thank you.
Hours talking about that.
That is an excellent example. Squid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes,
No. That thank you. That is an excellent example of that kind of makes more sense.
Well, fortunately, the Hating Game did not have a decades-long reputation as being unfilmable, so.
But one of the things I will point out is that when I watched this movie's trailer when it first came out, I was one of those angry book nerds. I was. And
as is your right.
Oh, well, as is my right, because it was just a reaction. It's just like, one of the things I loved about the book was blank. And then after really paying attention to the angry people responding to it, the subsequent people were just like, you understand you can't get away with that. And the specific example is that in the trailer, watch the trailer, you'll see the whole movie in the trailer almost, but you'll miss all of the heartfelt nuance that comes from reading the book.
Link in the show notes.
No. Stop it. Don't make me hate you.
I don't want to assume our listeners know how to use Google. Little joke. You guys are cool.
So what happens is they're in the elevator where a final confrontation comes into play, and she kisses him. And I immediately got pissed off because in the book he kisses her. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, though, I also got pissed off. I'm like, nah. Hashtag not my Joshua.
How many times had you read that part?
How many? Hashtag not my Joshua?
No, that part of the book.
No. The actor that they picked, because they actually had a different actor. I think it's Robbie Amell, and he's from The Duff and some other things that I haven't been paying attention to. But I'm just like, that's really good casting. And then he left the set, and I'm like, why would you do that?
The Duff? What is that?
The Designated Ugly Fat Friend is a movie.
I see.
You've never heard of The Duff?
I've not heard of that movie. I thought maybe it was a Simpsons spinoff about beer.
Mae Whitman plays a high school girl, and she's like 27 when she plays her, so it's like really, really frustrating.
Mae Whitman is cool though.
Mae Whitman is cool though. Her?
Yeah, her.
Okay.
No, hers is a different movie. It's
Her-
about falling in love with a phone, I think.
An app.
Sure.
The point is, I was having all the immediate reactions, and then of course when you have that reaction, you immediately go to social media and find all the people who agree with you, and then you start reading all the other things where it's just like, give it a chance, give it a chance. Oh right, me as a person giving things a chance. I should probably do that. So when it came out, I watched it. I had you watch it with me. I don't think I dragged you into watching it with me. I think I just actually give people a little bit of background. Did I make you watch this with me?
You invited me to watch it with you, and you seemed very apprehensive about the prospect, as though I was going to be doing you some kind of favor. And it was like, no, it's fine. I like this kind of movie. It's not my favorite genre, but I'm not going to be like, oh God, a romance movie. Why are you dragging me to this?
It's society, man.
Yeah, society.
Yes, it's society who's making it so I'm burdening you because I'm making you watch a movie that's probably geared more towards the female demographic.
I would like to think I have, a average to above average capacity to enjoy that as a man. I mean,
but there aren't any guns in. Oh no, there are guns in this movie.
Of course, there are guns in this movie. and besides, I was pretty. I was pretty curious to see the movie, just having built up my own set of expectations from. I haven't read the book, but just from hearing you talk about the book. Pretty much since you had first read it, and as you mentioned, it was kind of part of your own journey and getting more into romance novels. And I remember a few conversations we had about it being formative in your appreciation of the so-called enemies to lovers subgenre. And I can see the appeal of that. I mean, personally, I've always kind of enjoyed the platonic friends to lovers subgenre, both perhaps a bit less realistic than casual acquaintances to lovers or Tinder dates to lovers. And then you've got like the business partners to lovers, international allies to lovers. That's a fun one. Get some intrigue in there.
Billionaires and college graduates
To lovers.
To lovers.
Happily Ever Aftermath minigame. See how many times I can say the word lovers before Diana makes me stop.
Note to self, do not pick movies where I am this flustered.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't help that this movie is rated R.
Yeah.
Which is actually really helpful
barely,
for the storytelling. Would you say barely?
Well, I mean, like, I'm trying to remember what got the R rating, and there was like a fairly realistic amount of language. I do appreciate when a movie just bites the bullet and takes the R rating instead of like being in situations where adults would normally be cursing at each other and like dancing around the swear words in a way that sounds really unnatural. So I did enjoy that it could just have a bit more like realistic choice of dialogue, but it wasn't like super heavy on sexual content, was it? Like very brief nudity.
Yeah, that's it for the most part. Yeah.
Which, incidentally, did make it clear what you were saying about this definitely being kind of a woman-focused movie. I don't.
Would you care to elaborate on that?
You see a guy's butt and nothing else?
You see a guy's butt and nothing else.
Which is like, so is that female gaze, or is it just, male gaze directed toward a guy?
I'm going to unsuccessfully try to gracefully move our way out of this side of the conversation.
Of course.
But what did you enjoy about this movie?
Well, kind of along the same lines I was saying before. I think I enjoy the romance part of it. I mean, when you say the romance, I guess just sort of the vicarious feelings of the characters that because like your enjoyment of any movie is basically just empathy in the characters and what they're going through, and as it's building a relationship with a person or the nature of that relationship changing. It focuses very much on them, learning more about each other, not to go super cliched here, but also kind of like, learning about themselves too. So really, a romance movie is just a particular kind of having, a good old fashioned character study kind of movie. And, the kind of movie that you would define primarily as a character study kind of has the connotation of being kind of, heavyweight and dramatic. And I really think that, like the romance genre is just kind of lighter, fluffier, more popcorny version of the same thing, which I think, when it's done well, that's very enjoyable. Just kind of, seeing these two people, shape themselves into a situation and develop an affection for each other. It's very nice.
Right. And one of the things that hit really well with the story, I had the benefit of reading the book, so I didn't have to have all of the backstory, but I did have to have the arguing in my head of just like, but that's not the backstory, or you didn't tell them that detail, so how is anyone else supposed to be as emotionally tied to this as someone who has read the book? So you're providing that perspective, and I do appreciate that. Whereas for me, though, I do appreciate their montage at the beginning of just like, well, why is it that they don't like each other that much? And the answer is there's already a built-in rivalry with the fact that it's two companies coming together and merging, and individual styles are clashing.
Yeah, and they got some good comedy mileage just out of them, like, I don't want to say like harassing each other, but basically just kind of harassing each other, trading barbs, witty insults. It's not primarily a comedic movie, but some of them were pretty amusing.
Well, see, and that's the thing, and this is the part where I start to, again, peel the layers about why it is that I enjoyed this. Like, again, this came out in mid-December, and it has been a comfort movie for me, as the very stressful holidays on top of very stressful work situations have been happening. And for me, what is kind of one step further than that is in typical Diana fashion. I'm like, no, I'm only going to watch the parts that I watch, which is the parts where it's just like, first she has the uncomfortable dream that makes her see him in a different way. She tries to like step up by dressing in a way. She has a sex dream about him. She thinks, shit, I'm going to get into his head now. So she dresses in this really really
provocative.
Thank you. I was about to say, low cut dress. Again, I'm trying not to take from the book because that's the point. The whole point is just like, I'm going to get into his head. And what's weird though is that they try to do the comedy thing in there where she falls in front of him. I'm like, okay, so now we're back to the comedy part. But the parts that they're really trying to amp up the comedy is with Danny, the guy she's using to, try to make Josh jealous. Not even jealous so much as like shield her from his, making fun of, because I have a date with somebody. He's like, oh, who do you have a date with? Like, none of your business. And then she goes and asks somebody else out. And then there's this part where they're at a hotel, and then there's this, the person who's working the front desk is just this, I don't even know how to describe him, but he's just really,
that guy. Yeah.
really weird. And just like, I don't know if he's meant to be weird or just like off.
Like it was like they just dropped this little island of comic relief in there. But now you said that character was not in the book.
The character that was checking them in?
Yeah.
No. In the movie, they don't have two rooms, and so he just yells and berates them off book, basically, because she goes into a bar, and then she looks around, she sees that Josh has completely obliterated the person checking him in, and the manager is coming in to hug that person. He's a bigger asshole in the book.
I see.
Yes.
Yeah, and meanwhile in the movie we get just this character who's like very eccentric and
that's a word for it.
Yeah, and it's like
talks
just
about his mother.
Yeah, it's just like this island of comic relief that, like, weirdly enough doesn't really connect with any of the other characters or connect with the plot in any way. It's almost like, if I were trying to be critical, I would almost think like, oh, at some point during like script doctoring, they just decided we need a comedic beat here, but we can't get one out of our two main characters, so we're going to drop in an eccentric local at this hotel that they travel to.
Sure.
Which is like, it feels a bit incongruous. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like, oh, this is taking me out of the moment or anything. And he was pretty funny, but
no,
yeah,
it took me out.
It was strange.
It was definitely strange.
It was an odd choice artistically.
I mean, all I can do is think about like they're at a wedding on his family side. So if this family is full of all of Josh type people, they need somebody on the completely different end of the spectrum to just be wacky.
It made me wonder if he was going to like get weaved into the plot later, like they're introducing this to set up something else, and it set up a few more gags when they encounter him again, but nothing that really connected to the main story, right?
And it's strange that you bring that up, because when I rewatched the movie last night to refresh the parts that I don't watch very often, Danny talking about like blah blah blah, I need an EpiPen, and I'm just like, is that going to come in later? Because for some reason, because I'm on guard of like what they're going to take out of the movie, take from the book and leave out of the book. I'm like, is this EpiPen thing, are they going to not go paintball but instead need to do something involving Danny's EpiPen to get him out of the way? Because I see Josh doing, no, he just shot him with paintballs. It doesn't matter all that much.
crazy paintball variant where they shoot EpiPens at each other.
That's so dangerous.
Irresponsible on so many levels.
Not like taking off that's the thing that you kept telling me.
Even more irresponsible. Yes, I know. It's this crazy thing that happens pretty much anytime paintball appears in a movie or TV show that will drive you crazy if you've played paintball one or more times in real life, which I have. I'm not like a huge enthusiast, but I was kind of into it as a teenager. And I guess it's just a product of the fact that, like, directors hate shooting their actors with anything covering their faces. It's the same trope as like any movie with like a fighter jet pilot where they unhook their oxygen mask and let it kind of dangle off from one thing so they could, and of course they do it when like the most intense thing is about to happen, which is like, isn't that when they need it more? And so yeah, throughout the whole paintball scene, I was just kind of chuckling to myself as like they pull the mask off their face in order to lean in and have a conversation about what they're about to do, exchange strategy, and then like put it on. It's like, you can get shot before you burst out, and but it's fine. It's just artistic license. I'm not going to sit here and gripe about it the whole time. Although it will be interesting to see what happens when our society collectively is ready to make movies about the COVID pandemic. How much are we going to see people like, pulling their masks down in order to like lean in and talk to someone, or hopefully not. I don't know. I'm if I were a filmmaker, I'd probably be ruminating on how I wanted to, shoot around that.
I was thinking, I don't want to gripe about that. I'm like, oh, no, I want to gripe about this.
Okay.
Not about that specifically, but if we're talking about the realism of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So definite spoilers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're competing for the same job. And as much as I don't like the big public display and the big declarations, I did have a problem with that in this movie, where not only did he like have this whole kind of declaration in front of her, and I'm just like, this feels so...
Are you talking about like the final scene?
It's not the final scene. It's the final scene before the happy final scene.
The climactic business scene
where the problem is coming to a head, where they're competing for the same job.
And you're referring to the announcement of who gets the job.
I am very, very upset about the fact that he announced that she was the one who got the promotion in front of everybody, while also saying, you are the heart and soul of this company, and blah blah blah, and that's why I didn't tell you, and no. And I'm like, all of this is horrible right now because number one, she needs to accept this flippin' job before anyone announces this crap. I'm not in HR, but I know kind of, I've been hired for a job before.
Yeah, because like we knew she wanted the promotion, but nonetheless, that's the kind of thing you...
Oh, wow. Here's what just happened. So I just found out that my boss kind of asked this guy that I had this thing for to keep secrets from me, so it would gear me into competing harder for this job. That's strike two with that boss that I really had a problem with, so therefore I quit.
I know, that was, I remember when I first watched it, you were reacting pretty strongly to that, and that refresh my memory, was not in the book either, that plot point about how the boss put the boyfriend up to keeping it from her, that she was gonna... I
don't remember if she specifically said that. I know she recognized that Josh made her react in a way that was a little... And that was actually a big part of the book that I really enjoyed. She is a pushover in the book, and the only one she ever stands up to is to him.
Right.
And so the only way he knew he could motivate her to stand up for herself is to keep ribbing her and doing all these things, so eventually it would spread outward. In fact, there's this scene, the same scene with the person who's just like, oh, this is my boyfriend's niece and she needs this, that, and the other. She gets a phone call and she lets it go to voicemail. He's like, no, absolutely not. And he like star 69s, comes back, hi, this is Lucy's desk, please hold. And he actually coaches her through, like, with just his, like, visually, do not put up with this crap.
Oh, that's nice.
It's, again, thank you. Thank you.
Does Star 69 still work?
I don't know if that's what he did, but it was like an internal phone system, so he's able to get her back, or that he knows her extension or whatever it is. I don't really know. But there are lots of parts where he's a bigger asshole in the book than he is here. And I think a lot of the complaints is that, oh, he doesn't look like, or he doesn't sound like, and there's parts where, and again, it's an hour 45 movie. They can't make him be the big complex asshole the whole time, because that works in a book.
Yeah.
Because in my version of it, I can keep spinning it to where I'm just like, It's probably not as bad as I'm hearing it in my head, so it's softening him.
And in a movie, if you push him too far in that direction, you might not have enough time to reel him back and win the audience back over.
Well, again, you can't have enough of a backstory of how he's an asshole enough. Otherwise, to where, exactly, you can't get it back. And on the other side of it, most of the movie is him showing his softer side. So it's just like,
Right.
what's the problem with this guy? Why does she hate him so much?
Yeah, I did get that a little bit. That like they definitely laid enough of the foundation in sort of like the opening montage that Lucy was kind of narrating over, and then like it's almost immediately they just start like putting together the building blocks of him being more sympathetic.
The other thing I think is missing is that in the beginning you find out that, you know, she casually mentions, oh, he supervised a reduction of the workforce and that's where I lost all my friends. In the book it gets more detailed about the fact that she lost her best friend and she lost, you know, basically any type of like human connection in that way. So she's really, really lonely. And all she does is she puts her effort into like hating him because of what he did and how she, you know, she also has like a more extensive conversation and relationship with her parents and the whole strawberry farm thing here. It's just like, they grow strawberries. My parents have a strawberry farm. No. It's a bigger thing in there. And he's obsessed with that place. And she thinks he's just making fun of her the whole time, but he's actually just like really trying to find out everything he can about her.
Yeah. And even the condensed version of that in the movie with the nickname of Shortcake, which was interesting because she grew up on a strawberry farm and is also quite short, especially compared to him.
Compared to him, yeah. So, yeah, again, there's more details. It's more interesting. I am very much impressed at the way they managed to put things that are almost direct quotes into there, because he actually there's a lot of weird manipulation that comes into play where he makes her go on a date with Danny basically to say, you go out with him if you want to be with him, that's fine, but I'm not just going to be this weird experiment to where you're just going to, you know, basically his line is, I'm not going to touch you again until you tell me that no one can kiss you like the way I can. And that sounds really shitty.
That almost sounds like a different story, or like
I know that, but the thing is, when you find out further and further, like in here, you're probably not paying attention to it because it's going so quickly. She says, like, can we please just have sex so we can just get rid of all this crazy tension? And I can see it on his face that he is crestfallen, and he immediately says, okay, it's time to go.
Right.
And this just becomes the strange thing of what the fuck just happened, and maybe seem like he is just playing games with her. No, he has been used in the past for his body. Yeah. And he has lost many girlfriends because of that.
And meanwhile, does that ever work in real life? It's like, let's get rid of all the tension, and we definitely won't have any emotional baggage left over after having had sex.
And the good news is that we work across from each other.
Right.
So it's not like this isn't going to make this worse.
That is how you properly handle an office romance. It's in every HR book. Just have them have sex one time. Everything will be...
That's actually one of their games, the HR game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because when she starts telling her about the drim, he's just like, am I going to have to contact HR? And vice versa. So when there's this whole thing where they kiss each other in the elevator and he drops her off for a date and he doesn't know that she's on a date because she was actually lying, but she's trying to make him feel better about that whole thing. And he goes,
Intrigue.
Yeah, he goes to apologize to her. She's just like, you know, he's like, if you want to report me to HR, she's like, yeah, of course, fine, HR, blah, blah, blah. Because once again, he's like, you know, being that asshole again, but he's actually really remorseful. Because again, he kisses her, but she actually doesn't understand what's happening when he's kissing her in the book.
Right. So yeah, I mean, for like, you know, for what might be considered just kind of like a popcorn romance movie, there is a lot of nuance and layers going on.
Yeah, you don't get the full thing. And also I think the big underlying hit about how terrible he feels because his brother is marrying his ex-girlfriend. His ex-girlfriend literally left him for his nice brother.
Right.
So it's just he has,
and also his doctor brother. And
his doctor brother
inferiority complex about how he's like the only non-doctor in the family.
Right, but only because his father gave it to him.
A loser who got an MBA and
his dad is even shittier to him about the MBA.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so I would like to bring in my perspective as someone who's only seen the movie, didn't read the book, and fewer layers of complexity, but there are still some. And for me, the main thing that I found kind of interesting was like the reveal that Josh has been like nursing a crush on Lucy like pretty much since they first met,
Since
and
day
that,
one.
yeah, and that this was not reciprocated. That Lucy maybe thought he was physically attractive, but genuinely didn't like him, and meanwhile he's just been kind of like tamping down romantic feelings throughout this entire rivalry.
Not to mention, it's first she says hello, he takes one look at her, walks away with the plant that she gives him,
right?
And then
because he's like flustered and doesn't know what to say, but it comes across to her as being kind of curt and rude and indifferent,
rude, and actually not even just indifferent so much as just like, what the actual fuck.
Yeah, and if there's one way to get a lot of bang for your buck as a storyteller here, trying to garner the audience's sympathy, just the fact that he withdrew and behaved this way because he was nervous, because he was like too attracted to her and was flustered by it, and everything kind of snowballed from there. Yeah, it's almost you could almost watch the movie a whole second time just trying to decode that. I didn't watch it a second time with you, but maybe I would.
And who relates to when somebody finds out that they like them, they double down on being an asshole to them to their face? Oh, me. I am sorry, high school guys.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad I didn't catch that from you. But yeah, even just like the
I had to pull out of you that you liked me.
I
had to ask you point blank.
It was a confusing experience. But anyway, and just like that made me think about like the significance of that whole shortcake nickname, that he was like throwing it around as a way of like mocking her on the surface. And it's like, oh, wow, like that whole time, like in his own head, it was like a pet name that was underneath this veil of sarcasm. It's almost like from the Princess Bride, when he was saying "as you wish," he was really saying "I love you." It's almost like every time he was, calling her shortcake, it was like a term of affection, but only in his own head.
Yeah,
and that he could pretend like he was making fun of her instead, just so that he's got almost like this. He's got this like private little romance going, not romance, but like
affection,
veiled affection. Yeah,
and to take it to the next level, book wise. You notice in the movie, he calls her like, when I'm in charge, there's going to be a dress code to where you can't dress up like a elementary school librarian and stuff like that. He actually does mock her, and he does call her pathetic and all these other things, because he also knows he's watching her in real time, doing something that she doesn't want to do. So he steps in and basically calls her out on it. Why are you letting people do that? But he's doing it in a way where he's the asshole, because he knows that will get her ire up and she will start to defend herself. But if anything, she just starts attacking him.
Yeah, he mocks her for being weak and a pushover, because he knows that she's making herself miserable like that, and he wants to help her, but
and it's
all underneath this layer of armor.
And when he's starting to be honest with her, he's like, I know you bite your lip when you're doing something you don't want to do. And I'm just like, oh, this is weirdly stalkery. But at the same time, no, he does know her. And
he doesn't spend the entire day in the same room with her. Those are things you can pick up, that kind of thing, without being a stalker,
Right. Kind of like me and my own coworkers make up our own jokes when it just comes like, it's fine. And that
means it's not fine.
That's our private joke about it.
Right.
But it's also I don't know if it's upsetting, but it's like we'll say that to each other, but when we see it happening in actual like meetings and stuff like that, when they say it's fine, I'm just like, oh fuck. And then I feel bad for them. So
how many people at your company listen to this podcast?
Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
Yeah. So it's, again, I'm all like ramped up about it, because I'm just like, no. It's like a weird apology thing. Like, no, I know he's an asshole, but blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And also this, that, and the other. He's shy.
Yeah. And the day-to-day barbs, Lucy is giving as good as she's getting. And, if even in the early days, like if she really wanted to shut it down, she could have shut it down and just said like, this is juvenile. I want this to stop. Actually go to HR. But she is engaging. It is, it is depicted very much as a two-way street, because if it were a one-way street, the guy would just be like, look, no matter where this is coming from, stop being a jerk all day. It's, tiresome.
Well, actually, I'm not positive about that, because from what I gathered from the dialogue, they don't report each other to HR. Other people report them to HR.
Yeah.
But they just keep their bickering, and it just keeps going.
Well, that was exactly my point. Like, if either one of them really wanted it to stop, they could have stopped in a way other than just perpetuating the cycle.
Well, here's my thing. Lucy puts up with Bexley, and she has to deal with that kind of stuff because he is... At the end, there's this very satisfying thing where it says, this is a year's worth of sexual harassment complaints against Richard Bexley. Please file these to the board. For her, she has to put up with a lot of that. So she probably would put up with it even though she didn't want to. And again, and he recognizes that. On the other side, though, one of the things that didn't get underlined really importantly in there, he says it in the meeting. She's just like, if you get the job, I'll quit, and we'll agree you'll quit too. And he's like, I'm not a quitter. That is a bigger thing because he quit medical school in the book. And I'm just thinking, like, if he's having this hard of a time, why doesn't he quit? And the answer is because his father made such a big thing about him quitting medical school, so he can't quit anything anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that's another thing where when she's really, really pissed off at him when he's saying, I don't need any help to beat her, to Bexley. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's all a misunderstanding, but... She really knows how to hit below the belt when she said you would do anything to get your daddy's approval.
Right.
And you actually see his face just get so pissed off. Mm-hmm. And that is actually something that really, really hit me on rewatch because when you love somebody, you know exactly what to say to gut them in real time.
That is true.
Yeah.
And those character beats around like his father's approval and everything, those come out fairly late in the movie, right?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, and that's another one of those ways where it's interesting from a storytelling perspective, as I mentioned earlier, how they take on the task of making the audience dislike and then like this guy, and that's another one of the larger building blocks, and that he's dealing with this pain and his family background, and he wants approval, and in particular the fact that like being this big wealthy influential business person is within his family's context just a complete failure because he's not a doctor, and that's the only thing that matters.
Right. It's actually a family legacy.
Right.
Yeah. Also I should add from the book, he wasn't prepared for a second kid. Mm-hmm. So when he showed up, he didn't even really acknowledge his son. It was actually his mom who did everything, put him through college and everything like that. Mm. There was a story where, he took when I got my MBA, he took, Patrick fishing. I'm like, actually in the book, not only did he graduate, he just never came home. He never switched shifts. So he never did anything to celebrate his son. At all. And so it's sadder, and what's even worse, he's just like, I really can't complain because it's not like I was ever starving or anything like that. And this is where Lucy goes like, are you kidding me? You have every right to complain. Yeah. And she just kind of goes off on, again, once again, for the third time so far, I'm going to applaud the little details of when she yells at his father and somebody starts doing a clap right in front because she's like, congratulations to the bride and groom. And somebody starts clapping and that stops really, really quickly. That is in the book in a completely different context, but they still put it in there. And I'm like, oh, that was really cool.
that was a funny moment.
It was, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know. There is, I love a scene where somebody stands up for somebody else. I love a scene where somebody discovers more about the person that they didn't know this whole time, and all this other stuff.
It's a good genre.
I don't know if it's a genre. It's.
I meant the romance genre. These are things that come up with some regularity. Wouldn't you say?
I do love a slow clap.
Well, that's universal.
I love a training montage. I love a. Okay, I just went off on all the things I loved. And this thing about the book that wasn't in there, and this, that, and this one, he's an asshole, he's shy. I like shy guys.
Oh, do you?
I do.
That's good news for me.
I also like being the person who brings out the good in my person.
Well, you definitely bring out the good in me as a podcast guest.
Okay, but not in anything else. No.
Nothing worth getting into right now because it doesn't have anything to do with the movie.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, but there's also the personal about the movies. I think this is why this movie affected me as much as it did.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that too many elements of the movie like translate to my real life, but that's a good thing. That's a very dysfunctional workplace.
The movie itself.
More fun to watch than to live, I think.
At
least outside the falling in love with an attractive person part, I guess.
I like connecting to things.
Was also a just very unsafe paintball game. So
Also, what's up with snow?
yeah, they have that apparently.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Should be raining and then the game's canceled.
You like need special tires or something? I don't even know how that works.
For my shoes?
Yeah, you put chains on your shoes. I'm pretty sure I heard that's what you're supposed to do.
I don't know how snow works. Anyways, all right, important question.
Yes.
I'll let you answer first.
Okay.
As the conceit of this podcast. When did they fall in love?
Well, that is a little bit complicated for reasons we've covered. And, you could make a good case that what we're meant to take away is that Josh has been in love with Lucy. And her name is Lucy, right? That's the name of the character and also the name of the actress.
Lucinda is her name.
Right.
Lucy is what she goes by.
Yes.
He does call her Lucy. It's supposed to be he calls her Lucinda when they're being all, like, very serious with one another.
Just when I was watching this movie, I had to check myself 3 times. I was like, wait, I thought the actress was named Lucy. They're both named Lucy?
They're both named Lucy.
Okay, just checking. Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay. As I was saying, you could make a solid case that we're meant to take away that Josh was in love with Lucy since, well before the movie started. Mm-hmm. Which, I try not to make a big deal splitting hairs over what counts as love, but if that was just an attraction or a crush, the real moment that I think it probably turned a corner is when he took her home for the paintball game when she was feeling sick, and I remember that resonated with both of us as we were watching in particular, and that this is perhaps almost as awkward as talking about the sex scene as talking about the vomiting scene, but just the sort of physical details of holding her hair back and stroking her back and are you okay there, Dana?
It's so hot.
Not the word I would use, but it was definitely tender, and you have to think that meant a lot to Josh, because that was along the same lines as being able to cloak his affection in mockery. This was, an opportunity to show some tenderness and a different kind of affection under the guise of, I'm concerned because you're violently ill, and I just want to make sure that you don't die on your bathroom floor or whatever. And yeah, I mean, I imagine that would probably be the first opportunity for for him to kind of reach a new level of depth with those feelings that he's been kind of tucking away for all those years, months. I forget the timetable, but a long time regardless.
Sure.
And then for Lucy's side, there were many beats to the kind of development of her feeling. It's basically the arc of the entire movie, but the one moment that I would probably point at, and I feel like I'm cheating because I'm probably just hitting Diana's 2 high points in the movie, I'm very curious to hear if her answers differ from mine. But when Lucy blows up at Josh's father at the wedding reception and tears into him about being disrespectful to Josh, that was I mean that was a relationship thing. That was definitely something that you were not going to see in the context of a fling or a purely lust-driven affair or whatever you want to call it. And
little side note, it's very nice to see Lucy stand up towards somebody that is not Josh.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she's actually, but at the same time, it's Josh. Light.
Yeah,
it's the previous generation of Josh.
Oh, that's interesting. Almost him as an older version of Josh. I'm not sure I even really put 2 and 2 together.
It's really underlined in the book because they almost look identical.
That is interesting.
Just slightly older.
But yeah, but it's still it's showing how much of a stepping stone that whole growth experience was, with her first learning how to stand up to Josh and now learning to stand up to other people, including on Josh's behalf. And
for the record, I consider that to be easier, standing up for other people.
Oh, sure. But yeah, still, I mean, that like I was saying, that was the first thing that was kind of driven out of a more kind of holistic concern for Josh's well-being and, really caring about him, as opposed to everything up to that point. I'm not saying it was like insubstantial or anything, but it was all kind of springing out of this, just attraction to him, whether it's attraction based on his looks or based on this kind of, heated set of exchanges that they've had. That was, that rang true as a real relationship moment to me, if I can put it that way.
Do you believe that there's a thin line between love and hate?
Usually not.
Oh, okay.
I mean, what was the argument in the movie or in the book about how they both make your heart beat faster and cause you to obsess about the person?
Right.
I mean, if you're asking me seriously, I think that is something that works a lot better in fiction than in reality. But just the fact that they both kind of are in the Venn diagram of obsession is probably instructive there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So when do you think they fell in love?
Well, so I'm really trying hard not to just use the book as a thing, because there's actually a line where she says, "Oh my God, I'm in love with him" at a certain point in the story. And there's this thing where he said he loved her from the very, very beginning.
Okay, we're done.
Yeah, I know, right? In the book.
Join us next week.
The thing is, I'm trying to not use the book. So for me, I think it's part of that montage. He's in love with her somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. In the very, very beginning, they're playing the copycat game.
that was pretty silly.
The very, very beginning of the movie, there's the montage that explains everything up until that point. And it's there. It's after he met her. I don't think he fell in love with her immediately, but I think it happened in between there and then up to the point where the movie starts. Mm-hmm. That's when he fell in love with her, and there's a lot of things happening, and that's for him.
Very defensible answer.
Right, because why would he do most of what he does? I don't think it happened during the story that we're seeing.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas for her, because they moved things around from the book, I can see her why she would forgive him, but I don't think that she's in love with him by the time she knows that she has that promotion. I think there's way too much happening there where she's just been fucked with too much.
Yeah.
And messed with too much because she
still admits some of the secrets and lies there,
Right. And in the book at this point, everything, he doesn't confess. He doesn't confess at the wedding. There's a lot of stuff that happens after the wedding, but you can't have the story continue where he confesses that he's in love with her and then the promotion thing is still happening and then she thinks that he is just fucking with her to get the promotion.
That did strike me as a little bit disjointed.
Convoluted.
Because it's a very normal thing in romance movies to have this sort of contrived misunderstanding and then that almost felt like it was happening in the denouement of this movie that they already had their big relationship breakthrough at the brother's wedding, and then after that we hear Josh talking to his boss with about the promotion. I don't need your help to beat her,
and also that apparently it was Bexley's idea to just God, he actually said let her think that she can pet the pony.
What does that mean?
I think it means if she thinks, I don't know if he meant penis.
I should hope not.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't put it past him. This guy's supposed to be really, really gross.
Uh-huh.
But basically it's just let her think that if she has a chance with you, then it'll get in her head and then she'll be off her game. Apparently Bexley doesn't seem to understand that makes it worse for her and she'll double and triple her efforts. But yes, for me it's after the promotion and her growing into her role in their relationship furthering along. So it's in between the scene I really, really don't like where she gets the promotion announced by her boyfriend and the very, very end where they're very happily together, continuing to be rivals because they work for rival companies.
Right. So just to clarify for people who haven't seen the movie, the reason that he doesn't need help to beat her is that he's no longer trying to beat her. He's already accepted a job with another company, and then they wind up having to negotiate
an offer
with one another,
getting out of their contract.
Negotiating over book authors against each other's interests. So they're still
right
at each other's throats at work, but in a more productive way.
A little bit more, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the cute banter at the very, very end, where
it was cute.
Yeah, this damn new bitches.
The guy I have to deal with all day at work. Let me tell you about him. That kind of thing. Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, that was fun.
And if there were other people, I'm wondering if they would ever get like concerned about the relationship. Like, I'm sorry, who are you fighting with? So yeah, that's when I think. And do you have any thoughts on their future?
I have good thoughts about their future. I think that for the little glimpse that we see, that their dynamic has not changed that much, and
well, they're making it more productive.
Yeah, they're making it more productive, and clearly they've invested a lot of their energy in learning how to trade barbs with each other, and aren't aren't looking forward to letting that go anytime soon.
Nor irritating HR.
Right. I was thinking about this and how, in reality, a lot of the strength of a relationship is built up in how you deal with conflict and how you resolve conflict. And, something that, a piece of advice I would give in real life, and that, the health of a relationship isn't about avoiding conflicts, it's about resolving them. And it seems like these two have a big advantage in that they are going into this relationship already learning a lot about, how they deal with conflict, how they behave when they're upset, and, having gotten past the most of it. And, I don't think that means that, like, oh, they've, solved any future fight they might ever have, but it does seem like it would give a leg up, having already like really explored those aspects of each other's personality. What happens when the claws come out, and and perhaps most importantly of all, having the trust based on experience that you still can respect each other even when you're disagreeing or when you're angry, and having some trust that you're gonna come through the other side eventually. So I mean, that said, I do think that this kind of like predisposition to conflict, and the lingering aspects of the personality that led into that in the first place. Josh has his whole inadequacy complex. Lucy has her kind of retreating disposition, and that kind of drives Josh crazy when he sees it. And
people pleasing.
Yeah, and he's I don't think we've seen the last time when Josh ever gets upset with Lucy for being too people pleasing. So those things are not going to stop being rocky, but I feel like they've already done the hardest work on learning how to get past that. So in 4 words, couples counseling success story. That's the future of this couple, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, a lot of the things that they would fight about have been eliminated for the most part, in terms of like, she was always angry because of how cold he was to her. He's not cold to her anymore. And they're not, any type of, headbutting will happen a lot less frequently, because they're no longer 10 feet apart from each other.
Sure.
They're not working at the same thing, but for different ends.
I would lay good money on they will discover new things to have strife over.
Oh, well, of course, because they're still company rivals.
And as they proceed on life's journey, you'll be you'll be surprised and dazzled by the things that will piss both of them off.
Oh, that's okay. If anything, it's going to be, he's going to soften. I mean, because you are who you are at work, and I don't know that person very well. Yeah. But it's also something where if you bring me to the company party, and all of a sudden you have to navigate 2 different versions of yourself. They're not vastly different, but at the same time, the things we laugh about, the things we joke about, are not necessarily the things you laugh and joke about with your coworkers.
It is tough. I think that's why people drink at those things.
I see. Not where I was going with that, but. What I'm saying there is that they will still have these versions of each other. She will soften him, he will get her to have a little bit more of a less people-pleasing disposition, and in turn they will get better at what they're doing on the outside. Basically what any good successful relationship does, you find this way to become better at yourself because of a person helping you navigate it, and vice versa. And in his case, he's going to be very tough and very good, and very cold and very efficient, but at the same time, when Lucy's there, he's still going to be like, okay, fine, and maybe we can also go out for drinks later, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, not to be cliche about it, but I think that is part of what makes this movie work, is that you're seeing them become better versions of themselves in real time.
Yeah, and then I always think that that's what I strive for in my marriage.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Oh, okay. Yes. Because if I'm better, but only a better musician.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's a new hobby I'm going to pick up in 2022.
You heard it here first. Now she has to do it.
No, I don't. But at the same time, I'm saying I'm not going to be a better wife. I'm not going to be better at my job. I'm just going to be a better musician.
You might have peaked in those anyway. So.
No. Oh, wait. No. No. No, screw you. And now we hate each other.
Yay.
Alrighty. So this was a new movie. So thank you very much for, popping in, trying to figure out what it was all about.
It's fun when we get to do new releases. It doesn't come up that often.
I do like this movie. I did enjoy this movie, even with my problems with it. Whether or not I recommend it to people, again, it's all people's own personal preferences. So if you like the trope, I think you'll appreciate it. I do. And
and I thought it was well made for what it was. And yeah, it was interesting watching it as maybe like a little bit of an outsider to the target demographic, but I like to think that I'm open-minded, and it was fine. Solid B.
And this movie was made with a lot of care and a lot of conscientiousness. So I do appreciate the people who are involved in it for doing what they did. Okay. So if you have anything to say about the hating game, or if you want to talk to us about anything that's a little bit more long form, you can email us at contact@heamcast.com. There's the social medias that I'm not on as often as I used to, but it's still a way to get my attention. That's Twitter at HEAMCast, HEAMCAST, and Instagram, and then Facebook at Happily Ever Aftermath.
Yeah, I'm also on Twitter. You can find me in the HEAMCast retweets.
Yeah. So thanks again for coming on, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun.
All right. Until next time, may your aftermath be happy.